So, much like everyone else in the fucking world, well, at least my world, everyone else in my world, which is basically internet, online, that type of shit. But I've been playing through Spider-Man, and I no-lifed it. Well, not no-lifed it. I finished the story. It took me 2 days from getting the game because I didn't get it the week of, I got it the week after. Avoided spoilers because I was really interested to see where the story was going, and it didn't let down. It did in some areas, but like it was still like a really solid game, which is saying a lot for Insomniac. And I don't know, I don't want to refer to this as a review because it's not the full game, it's just the story. So literally only done a handful of side quests, and I don't feel like I have the right capabilities to say if those were good or not because I didn't do any of them. Compared to the first game, I was much more excited about the story this time around. Was never a big fan personally. Like, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, which is why I'm making this video in the first place. But I was never really a big fan of the Sinister Six. At least that iteration of the Sinister Six. I liked a lot of the villains that by themselves. There were like one or two that I wasn't a big fan of, but they're fucking whatever. I don't really give a shit. But the story was way more engaging because it had characters that I loved. I've always been interested in seeing Kraven portrayed outside of like animated series and comic books, and I'm sure there are other games out there that he plays a villain in, which I think is like one of the original Spider-Man, like Spider-Man 3. I think that was based off of, it was either Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man 2 where Kraven was in it, but I never played that game, so I don't know. Overall, the story was amazing. I loved most of the aspects to it. I just feel as if we didn't get to see enough of Kraven, enough of Venom. Like, for me to tell you what I liked about the story, I'm gonna have to go like dive into it. So spoilers, most likely. I'm not gonna try and hold anything back, but I'm not trying to say anything. Kraven, for being the villain in what felt like the first 50% of the fucking story, was rarely ever seen. He was the main antagonist, and all we had to do for the entire first 50%, it felt like 50%. It could be less, it could be more, I don't know. It might be more percentage-wise for the story. Not the game, but the story itself. Because the story itself is like, what, 50% of the actual game compared to all the activities you can go and do. But either way, Kraven wasn't a big part in it. We had to deal with his hunters, which I already didn't like. I didn't like that the hunters, because Kraven strikes me as like, he doesn't seem like the character to do that. He does shit on his own because he thinks it's a challenge. From all the media I've seen him in, he does shit on his own. He doesn't have all these goons around that help him serve his bidding. Like, for example, I'll give an example. When he's capturing all the villains to find someone that is his equal, and I'll go into that storyline by itself, but right now we're focusing on the hunters. The hunters weren't interesting. They tried to make them interesting by giving us short little mini bosses and shit like that, like in the Emily May Foundation. When the hunters came in and destroyed that, they gave us a little mini boss, and that was probably the most fun mini boss. But there's a few others that the hunters the devs sprinkled in for the hunters to be like mini bosses, leading up to this big fight with fucking Kraven. Now, Kraven is one of my most... Like, I love Kraven, and I want to see him done right. And I feel like they got his mentality and everything down. But what he was lacking was his reasoning for everything that he's doing, which is fine. I like how they put a spin on it. He's dying of cancer. He wants to find someone that can kill him. You're not gonna die when you have fucking hundreds of bodyguards around you at all time while you cherry pick this shit. He stole Scorpion and Lee at basically the beginning of the game. Killed Scorpion, which is fine, whatever. I don't think they were going to actually do anything with that character anyway. He was kind of a background character even in the first one. Like, and he was one of the main antagonists. I mean, you did get a boss fight with him and Rhino, but it was... I don't know. I wasn't a fan of Scorpion. He's one of the characters that I wasn't that big of a fan on. I didn't like the Hunters. Kraven, as a character, I fucking loved. Because it had his mannerisms, his reasoning for it all. I love that they gave him a good motive. I hate that they gave him a fucking entourage of assholes. And I understand why they did it. It's a video game. You have to have fucking henchmen to hit. But maybe he shouldn't have been the main threat if that was the case. If that was what their decision was based off of. Because he is a singular villain. He's not like Silver Sable. Honestly. Does shit on his own. And that's always been his character. As far as I've seen. I could be wrong. I'm not a huge comic book nerd, but everything I've seen, read, everything about him was dope as fuck. And I see how they tried to portray it that way. Excuse me. But they just fucking... They screwed it up with the Hunters. He shouldn't have been the main villain. There was a reason why the first one was so good. You didn't see Octavius have all of these fucking henchmen. At least I don't remember it. Because Octavius was in the story the entire time. Granted, we didn't have a fight with him, but we didn't necessarily have to fight Kraven every time we saw him. We got, what was it, one instance of where Kraven was face to face with Peter in the black suit Spider-Man. Or the black suit. If that was going to be the point to fucking beat the shit out of him, because at that point, yeah, maybe he wasn't totally lost to it, which I can understand why he walked away. But the black suit, like, it enhances all your emotions, your anger, your resentment towards Kraven. He's doing all of this shit. And at this point in the story, he was already pissed off because Kraven turned Connors into the Lizard. I'll get to that storyline too, because that's one of my favorite in the entire fucking game. And I feel like they did the Lizard storyline dirty. But yeah, I'm just gonna wrap this one up for Kraven. Good villain. Unnecessary henchman that was added to his storyline, so we barely ever got to see him. Now that we're on the topic of villains, let's move to the symbiote storyline. Symbiote, Venom, whatever you want to call it. I was a big fan of Harry becoming Venom because I don't want him to become Green Goblin. That has to be Norman. And I think that's what they're setting up. I hope to God they're not setting up fucking Harry as Green Goblin, because he's already been Venom. They already beat him once. If they do it again, they're just rehashing old shit. But I was a big fan of Venom. I'm glad that they didn't try shoehorning Eddie Brock in, which is what I thought they were going to do when I saw the first trailer. Which I didn't know the story or anything of that at all. But the symbiote storyline, I liked that it was kind of a cure for Harry's illness. So it added some inner turmoil to it that I really did enjoy. There's not much to say about the symbiote storyline because it's all cut and dry. I would say. Everything that's been talked about the symbiote has been being talked about for years. Making more aggressive, all that shit, fucking with his judgment, whatever, being a dick to everyone. I liked that. I just wish that the symbiote storyline took up the entirety of the game, if not most of it, not 50% of it. I feel like there was a weird dynamic for the power scaling, because for whatever reason, I understand, like, Kraven's a fucking amazing hunter. And I think he should be a challenge, even for Black Suit Spider-Man. And he didn't meet his match with Venom. I will give him that. But, like, Jesus Christ. The power scaling in this entire fucking game. You had Kraven, who's just a normal guy with fucking late stage cancer. He was in like final stage chemotherapy, I think. And I get he was drinking potions, never explored, at least in the story. They probably explored a bit in like side missions and shit, I don't know. But that's never explored. We fucking see it laying on the table and you inspect it. You inspect one of his potions and Spider-Man's just like, this must be how he's so fucking strong. Which is fine. But if you're gonna do that, expand on it. What is it? Is it mixed with some sort of symbiote? Is it mixed with something else in the spider fucking world? We don't know. It's just a fucking vial or a fucking beaker of shit just sitting on his table. And he's somehow able, with cancer, to fucking keep up. He's somehow fucking able to keep up with Spider-Man, which is fine. Like, you can keep up with Spider-Man, that's fine. Because, unironically, Spider-Man is one of the weaker characters in his own universe. Because what wins him most fights is his mind. He can outsmart the villains. But when you start making Kraven much stronger than, say, Harry when he was wearing the symbiote, like, yeah, Harry was throwing him around, but Kraven was keeping up with him up until the very end. He almost fucking killed Peter. Because granted, Peter did fucking just rush in willy-nilly, not think about anything, and just try to hit him. And that didn't go as planned. But yeah. The symbiote storyline was pretty cut and dry. Trying to end humanity, that type of shit. The symbiote should have been the main villain of the story. From the beginning. Like, you do all this prep, and then the symbiotes aren't the main villain until the very fucking end. You have any idea how many fucking hunters I killed when I could have been fucking slaying some symbiotes? More Kraven, more Venom. That's all I wanted. Right. One of my cons for this game is Miles not really being involved in any of the main fucking story. He always played second fiddle. I mean, he's on the fucking box. He's on the box. He barely has any story. He has the least story. Then he has like a mission for, I mean, I guarantee it's probably more side missions, but in the main story, you have that museum mission. Yeah, what else does he have to fucking do while both storylines in this game, by the way, both of them fucking center around Peter in some way. Harry with the symbiote, Kraven with Kraven wanting to kill Peter and only taking and bringing fucking Miles into it just to lure Peter there. Like, that was his only, like, the Lee storyline was cool. I liked how their characters summed up everything. I like Lee's involvement in the story. But Miles could have been so much bigger. You play with him. You play as him for half of the fucking I was gonna say movie. For half of the fucking game. And his stories, his quests or whatever, always seem to be trying to aid Peter. He's not doing his own thing. They didn't add him into the story well at all. And then he fights Venom. Like, the last phase of Venom's boss fight, where he's like a fucking demon, we play as Miles, but there's no emotional investment because Miles and Harry talked once on the phone, not in a cutscene. Once having a conversation. I'm not counting when they first met, when they shook hands, because all they said was hi. They only had one conversation that entire game, and I'm supposed to feel like, as I'm playing this character, like this is the epic big final showdown? No, fuck that. Miles should have had his own thing going on that intersected with the main story, that maybe he could be fighting someone. Like, maybe Kraven could have been after him. Make it so that Kraven would go after Miles. So at least he would have something to do. Instead, like, this motherfucker can crawl up walls. Why is Kraven not interested in that? He wasn't interested in Peter either until he got the black suit on. Like, there's some weird shit happening in that city, and you're not interested in trying to hunt down and kill the one guy that's been putting all these people away so you can prove that you're gonna best him? At least pick one of the Spider-Man, and that was the perfect Spider-Man to do it. Kraven could have gone after Miles while Miles is simultaneously dealing with the Lee shit because Kraven let him out. There's story there that you could have easily weaved together. I'm sounding more pissed than I actually am. The game's fucking amazing. But Miles, I feel like they didn't know how to write him into the story. I feel like they did great with the first Spider-Man because it was just Peter. You didn't have to intersect someone else into the story and giving him a storyline. It was just Peter's storyline with Doc Ock. That was amazing. Either way, I gotta move this along because I'm not fucking making a 30-minute video. I like the setup for the third game. The setup for the third game was amazing. At the end, Norman talks about the goblin gas, or whatever he calls it, the G serum. I knew what that was immediately when he said it. I was like, that's fucking foreshadowing, that setup. I love it. It's what we've been waiting for.